Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hey, and I think we're live. Hey,
Hey,
Jen. It's nice seeing
hi.
you.
You.
So, welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining for our third Women in Animation Bay Area chapter YouTube Q&A. We hope this series we can bring on guests and provide some education, resources, and a little entertainment to the amazing women, transgender, non-binary, and all underrepresented gender identity communities who want to pursue and thrive in the animation industry. So please subscribe and put down questions or topics that you want us to talk about, and we will do our best. So without further ado, I would like you all to meet Jen Dalhman. Jen has worked most of her career at Dreamworks as an associate producer and has continued on producing at Nimble Collective and as well as at AWS. She strives to help women in the animation industry by being part of WIA Bay Area mentorship committee. She was also my mentor when I was a young and inexperienced producer.
Many years ago.
Maybe, yeah, like last
Real way
years
back.
ago. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about one of my favorite topics is
Which is
mentoring. I love it.
yeah, so I guess we can start right off. So, what has your experience been like as a mentor?
Um, I love mentoring, particularly women in the animation industry. I think it's really important for folks to really help each other out and give support where you can. Um, I have learned so much as a mentor, both in formalized programs like through Women in Animation. I mean, I think they have a very well organized program where you're meeting on a regular basis, you're setting goals, and then less formal situations where you could mentor folks, who have reached out to me personally who I don't even know. I love just helping give advice to women in the industry to help them get a leg up because I think it's so important, particularly in this day and age, to really have a support system that you can turn to.
For sure. I mean, I think that really like speaks, or it's really reassuring to me, and I'm sure to other people that you say that because I think one of my fears when I reach out to people that I would, love to have as my mentor, I'm like, oh gosh, like, am I being a burden? Like, should I, like, can I even ask for help? Like, how do I even reach out to you? How do I
Yeah,
even ask? Yeah. So, that there's
always
a,
ask.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's I think particularly for women, it's hard for us to ask for help. It's hard for us to reach out to somebody you don't know. But I think once you can kind of get over that fear of whatever it is, embarrassment, rejection, or that they don't have time for me, just the sooner you can get over that, the better, and the more rewarding your experience will be. I've had folks who I've mentored within the companies that I've worked for. I've been introduced through colleagues to
mhm.
mentees that are looking for support and feedback. And then folks from the outside who I don't know have reached out to me. So I think you really have to get past the fear because the worst that can happen is they just say no.
Yeah.
The people who make the best mentors typically are the folks who are the busiest. And so,
But that's like
um,
kind of conundrum, right? Because like, oh, they're so busy. Are they gonna
well,
have enough time?
let them say no. Don't say no to yourself first and foremost,
Yeah,
and miss out on an opportunity to really learn from somebody else and potentially network with somebody else. It's really important for us to put that fear aside
mhm.
and channel your inner extrovert and ask people. I think it's really important now in this day and age that we're all so isolated from each other. You're not meeting people in the hallway at the company that you work at. You're really disconnected, in a serious way now. So it takes even more courage to reach out to folks, and you need it for yourself more than ever now, just to have that personal connection. to interact with somebody who, you can reach out to folks. That's why I think LinkedIn is so great. You could reach out to folks who, are in the industry that you want to break into. You can reach out to folks who have the position that you're looking for. Just reach out to folks. That's what LinkedIn's so great. You can, do it through their site. You don't have to know their email address. You can reach out, but I do recommend that you share a little bit more about yourself when you're reaching out to these folks, when it's not a personal reference that you're, essentially making a cold call. Share about where you are in your career and where a little bit of where you'd like to go. And that creates that first initial personal connection. So I appreciate it if somebody says, they're fresh out of school and they don't really know, what the opportunities are that are out there, and they want to discuss, options, or they're in a particular area and they just don't know how to kind of break it into the next level to take their career to the next step. Sharing that kind of information from the get-go is really important. And then once again, don't take offense if they're too busy. But then, ask them, hey, do you have 3 other contacts I could speak with? If they do say no, that's the thing. We are so eager to help. I think I get energized by talking with mentees. For me, it's so much fun. It makes me a better manager. It makes me a better producer. It forces me to be able to communicate things clearly. And, also share my mistakes that I've made. I'm not just talking about the path that I took. You should take that exact path, because that's never going to happen. But, some choices that I've made or mistakes that I've made that you could potentially learn from as well is super helpful.
Yeah.
And I think, people love talking about themselves. Come on, let's be honest. So, when you're talking to a potential mentee, you're talking a lot about yourself, like I'm doing right now.
But that's what we're here, right?
Exactly.
Hear your experience and stuff. And so I wanted to bring back to how you were talking about, because it's really true, in this day and age, especially now, we can't go to conventions, we can't go to class, it's even harder to connect to professionals without, doing a little research on LinkedIn and following a bunch of people that you've heard of. So, but on top of that, you were saying, a lot of encouragement of just reach out, do a cold call. The worst thing that you can get is no, but, and it's not even that bad. But how do you what qualities do you look for in a mentor? Because I think sometimes they're like, oh, I think there's a huge scarcity mindset where we're like, oh, I should just get anyone I can to be my mentor. But that's not exactly right, because you have to find a mentor that's a good fit for you, right?
Well, I do think if you reach out to somebody and they're willing to have an initial conversation, take advantage of it. Obviously, if you're reaching out to them, you think it could be a potential good match anyway. But always have an initial conversation with somebody. And at the get-go, maybe you don't have to pour out your goals that you ultimately have. You can have a conversation where you're asking them about their experience, what was their path like in their career, what makes a great day in their job. And you get a feel for the rapport that you have with each other. Are you comfortable asking questions of this person? Do you trust that they'll be able to give you the right advice because they're in a position where you want to eventually be?
Yeah.
I think it's and it's okay if it's not a fit also. You shouldn't go with the first therapist you talk to. You probably shouldn't go with the first, you could go with a mentor that you really, like I said, have the ability to have a good rapport with and can really talk to. You're not marrying that person. So, definitely be open and be able to be a good listener. But really find if they have truly the information that you're looking for. And frankly, in situations where I've been the mentee and had conversations with folks, I've learned from people who I know I don't necessarily want to emulate or have taken a very different path, but I've still learned something from that person.
Right.
I think also, don't kind of hang your hat on age also. It really should be about experience. So, I can whip out a budget or a schedule for an animated short, no problem. But can I schedule a Facebook Live session like this? No, I'm going to search out somebody. So, Amy, you could potentially be my mentor in learning some new skills that I would find valuable. Don't necessarily, be focused on that person who's at the top of their game or the person who's been in the industry 30 years, because I think there's a lot to learn from having it go both ways too. So really explore that relationship. Yeah. So what else?
I mean, that's really great, because I think that also just shows, like, peers are really valuable too as mentors, right? Peers that, even like, I had a friend who has many kinds of mentors. Ones that, like, mentors are like who are much further in the career, or like ones who are just, maybe one step ahead, and like they want to be like who are a lot more closer in like relatability, or like, being relatable. So I think like what you said is so valuable. You should mentors can be anywhere.
I mean, if it also can be about a networking situation where, say you graduated from art school and you're in touch with, your fellow students, and maybe they're doing the same job that you're doing, but at a different company. Have lunch over Skype once a month and talk about your experiences. Talk about what it's like at a big studio versus maybe a startup, or this person who's gone into visual effects versus, feature animation. Learning from your peers is also super valuable, that peer group. And then you can help each other as you, make your way through your career path, and learn from their mistakes as well. So I think it's good to, look at peers as potential mentors as well. I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. So like, for my next question, I think you kind of already, answered it, but maybe we can go on the topic of like, how do you approach a potential mentor? And I think more importantly, something that a lot of people think about is like, how do you keep on maintaining a good connection, right? And that part of it is like, being a good mentee, right? So how do you maintain a good connection after you start off and finding a mentor that fits you?
I think it's really important to definitely set some goals. Think about what you really want to get out of the relationship. Do you, like I said, I think I've listed some other examples as far as like, do you want to learn managerial skills? Do you want to learn how to pitch a story effectively? Really do your research as a mentee and take on that responsibility of really clarifying, what do I want to get out of this? And that way it really focuses the mentor, because once again, time is so limited. You want to be able to get the most out of those conversations. So if somebody approaches me and says, I want to learn how to do a budget for an animated short that I want to do, that's, a task that's clearly defined. I can sit down and work with that person and really set some interim goals. Typically I would meet with folks about twice a month. Once a month is also good too, depending on what it is. But then really set the goals for each session to say, okay, I ultimately want to learn budget and scheduling. Can we talk about, Excel formulas or whatever it is, how to do a proper schedule, or, set interim goals within those timeframes. And once again, that just allows the mentor to clearly focus. And so you get the most out of those sessions as much as possible.
Yeah, this is really
goal
good.
Setting is key. Definitely.
Yeah. Do you know if you can set like an overarching goal, like, oh, I'm gonna have like a big demo reel. Can you help me like kind of go to there, or like, oh, I'm interviewing for a job, like how can you help me get there as well?
Yeah, once again, I think you don't have to have it all figured out coming in. I want to see you basically want to come in with an idea of what you want to accomplish in the time that you guys have. And then your mentor can help you figure out what are those interim steps. What are the things you should be talking about every week? Also allow time for kind of free conversation. There have been many times where I've met with mentees where they've wanted to figure out how to communicate something to a director, or how to deal with a difficult personality, where we'll kind of do some role playing of being in that situation so they feel more comfortable. So you can have a lot of structure, and I think you should have a framework and walk in with a framework, but then you and your mentee can kind of figure out together how to get there. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to go about it. And then together you guys can come up with the solutions and answers.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's what's so great about the Women in Animation program is it's so clear what the goals are at every stage. So, if you don't really know where to start with one of those formalized programs. Start with a group that actually has a mentoring program that can partner you up with somebody who, has gone through, basically achieve the goals that you want to achieve. It's a great way to go. It really is. It's at least with WIA, it's very well organized, and I highly recommend it for women.
Yeah. Yeah, I was part of the Women in Animation mentorship program, and it was really neat because they partnered us with with a mentor, and then they said that you should meet like twice a month for this period of time, and then set several goals so that you can discuss with your mentor and work towards that. And I think that worked beautifully because there was a structure there to go off on, and to work and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Formalize the process a little bit more. Ideally, I would say that first session, if you could meet in person, but I know times have changed and we're doing a lot of this now. So I don't think actually it's absolutely necessary. It's always kind of nice to have that kind of set off on a good track by meeting in person. But like I said, at this point in time, we really can't do that. But scheduling, even just saying, can you meet for lunch, over Skype or over Zoom? I have a few things to talk about. Maybe it's not as scheduled or regimented as every 2 weeks. Just grabbing somebody for lunch, I think is super helpful. And just say, hey, I'm in this situation and I want to kind of brainstorm some ideas with you of how you think I should approach it. It can be, as loose as that, or, when the occasion arises where you need that kind of feedback. Doing a lunchtime meeting, I think, is super helpful, and you can get a lot out of it.
Yeah, just to have those like kind of small chats and kind of things like that. When would you recommend someone, like if they were having a hard time, like finding what direction to go in with a mentor? Like, would you recommend someone pursuing a mentorship? Because I think there are a lot of people out there who, there's so many things to do in animation. There's just so many career
and they're
tracks
changing every day.
Yeah, because as technology changes, like, positions and needs change as well. So, like, how would you, with someone who's trying to figure out their career, like, how would you advise them to go about mentorship?
I think you could actually even just start out with an informational interview. If you treat it as that, then you don't necessarily have to make a commitment right off the bat with somebody that you may not have a rapport with. But if you approach it, that first initial meeting, as an informational interview, hey, at your company, what are, the most common roles that you see in animation? How do you see this changing, over time? What new technologies do you see on the horizon? That kind of thing, where you can treat it as almost like an informational interview. And then you find you do have a rapport with that person. Then you can ask for additional time where it is a more structured, kind of goal-focused conversation. But yeah, to really kind of feel it out, I think treat it as an informational interview. And then, the more and be honest, in that conversation, just say, hey, I don't even know what direction I want to go in. And I'd love to hear more about how your, whatever it is, studio, startup, how it's organized and what are the roles that you see and, what you may individually be qualified for.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, all the time, creative styles, there's always new animation styles popping up. There's new technologies. I think that's what makes the industry so exciting. And that's why I think it's even more important to help people kind of lift up, especially women, in those creative and leadership roles to get exposure. It's really important to help each other.
Yeah. In terms of, I think for women, there's something I think that's so hard for women to ask for help. I think like not feeling that you are worthy of help. Or even, other underrepresented gender minorities. Like So if you had to give advice to someone who, like, on the edge of like wanting to ask for help but not sure how to get that motivation and encouragement, like what would you say to them to encourage them to, like, hey, just reach out, like you can
I mean, you
do
really,
this.
you have to advocate on your own behalf. We try and advocate for voices who are not necessarily speaking up and encourage them to do so, but you really do need to take ownership, over your own knowledge and your own exposure. I mean, definitely speak up. That's the greatest lesson you can learn in all of this, and that's why having a mentor can really help you be comfortable in asking those questions in a small environment. No question is too simple. Just get over that fear as much as you can to ask for help and be honest about what you don't know. Just by putting that on the table can open so many doors, and just being honest about, hey, I've been using this term for 3 years and I really don't know what it means, whatever it is. But I think we really need to be comfortable in advocating on our own behalf. Also, I think that's why it can be interesting to have a mentor outside of the company that you are currently in. You may be going through some things that you don't necessarily want to discuss with a boss, but you still want to, brainstorm some ideas or get some advice from somebody. Having somebody that's outside of your company can be really helpful. And then that way you can really be completely honest with that person and get a viewpoint that you probably wouldn't normally get inside your company. This is a person who isn't aware of company politics, or particular strategies within the company, that they're approaching it from a different viewpoint. And I think sometimes that can feel safer. Also, I think when you do have a situation where you're just kind of feeling on the edge, I think particularly in production, there's always seems to be this point in time in production where I've had mentees approach me and go, it's just completely messed up. I don't know what to do. We're over schedule, we're over budget, and the whole thing is falling apart. And for me, I think, oh, good, you're right on track, because every producer hits that point. Guaranteed they hit that point of I've completely messed everything up. And to have that voice to say, you know what? No, you're doing great. You're right where you need to be. Why don't you try these 3 things? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Whatever it is. But to have somebody to kind of reset you and say, it's okay. You're don't worry about it. You're right on track. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep pushing through.
I've definitely had those moments with you when I was like producing my own film. I would be like having a crisis, like, am I doing everything I need to be doing? I don't know what I'm doing. Like, and then you were just there, be like, you're doing fine. Just to keep going.
No, you're
like,
right on track.
Yeah.
And I think, the whole imposter syndrome thing is very real for women. The feeling like, I'm going to be found out. I don't really know what I'm doing. Everybody else in the room is so much smarter than I am or more articulate than I am. Having somebody to turn to with those feelings, I think, or somebody who can help validate you is also really important. And that's something that I've gotten out of my own, experiences as mentee, is somebody to say, no, I really want to hear your opinion. I want you to speak up in the room. It's a valuable opinion and you should feel comfortable doing it. And, with all of these things, practice makes perfect. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So the more you can talk to somebody who's been through it, the more courage it can give you to be in that room full of, guys all shouting over you, to really share your opinion and be heard. Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, for sure. I think I feel like we've covered a whole spectrum of like the types of mentorships we can get out of, which is like, it could be a very technical mentorship where you're asking for advice of how to execute a certain workflow, or it could be almost like an emotional one where you're sort of like, oh, when you try to navigate imposter syndrome, and how are you going to get out of that, or how do you move forward over your artist block and continue keep on fighting to be creative, or how to navigate, company politics, or like, some of the issues we struggle as like underrepresented, gender, minorities, or as women. So yeah, that's like super fascinating, and I think that just proves the point where like we want to like want to we have to, like you were saying earlier, we have to own what we don't know.
Yeah.
In order to have a successful mentorship relationship, mentee mentorship relationship. Yeah.
Right.
So
Mentor for yourself. Until you get a mentor for yourself, be your own cheerleader. Like I said, advocate for yourself as much as you can. And, what's the phrase? What am I thinking of? Well, anyway, the sooner you can learn that, the sooner you can learn that, you know what, I'm going to speak up, I'm going to ask these questions, the easier it gets. Just keep doing it. Use your mentor as somebody to, like I said, brainstorm ideas off of, or role play. Role playing, as uncomfortable as it can be, it's so valuable. Like I said, if you wanted to story pitch an idea, share that with your mentor first. That's what they're there for, to give you feedback. Whatever it may be, you have somebody who's in your corner. You have somebody who is looking out for your best interests only. They're not looking out for company politics. They're not looking out for, what they can get out of the relationship. But it's somebody who's always going to be in your court, who's going to tell you the truth and do whatever they can to support you. Because, and that's why I love mentoring. It's actually also so much fun. I mean, we make it sound so serious, but it's also so much fun. And also, we're so isolated. Again, it's having that psychological lift of somebody who knows, what, I've been there. And this is what you can do. It's all okay. There's a path for you. Don't worry. Not all hope is lost. We can figure it out together. And that's so, so important.
Yeah, I think there's almost like a humbleness with like a mentor. I'm sure you've experienced this where, if you have been, and if you choose the right mentor, you and like mentee, you probably can really relate to them because like, I've been there. And let me help you, guide you to like that what you're doing is okay, that you're at a point where like it's okay to make that kind of mistake. It's okay to be having this block. It's okay to be facing these struggles that you're going through, because this is part of the whole growth process.
Right. I mean, I've been in the industry 24 years. And I mean, I'm still super close with my very first mentor in the animation industry. The woman who taught me how to do the job of producing well before I was qualified to do any of it. I didn't come from an animation background. I didn't go to art school. I knew nothing about it, but the opportunity arose and I was so excited about it. And like I said, to this day, we're still in touch. Pretty much all of the mentors I've had, I'm still in touch with. And it's a bond that can, like I said, last decades, as it has for me. So, really take that risk, really kind of push yourself to reach out to folks. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I think there's so many people out there who want to help you. Just take that first step and start reaching out to folks. It'll be worth it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm so glad that like I reached out to you through the book collective and like got that advice. I think because I literally had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what milestones were. Or, like, oh, you have to set deadlines for an animation project. So like, what?
Right.
Why?
Oh my God! But you are so talented. So here we're gonna pretend we're mentee and mentor again. You're so talented. No, but honestly, you have the desire to learn, and that's 90% of it. The desire to learn, the desire to listen, the desire to ask questions. I mean, you were a model mentee. And once again, we're still in touch many, many months after the project wrapped. It's an experience that, like I said, get past the fear. You had shown up. I can't remember how we got together, but you had shown up at Nimble, and all you had to do was ask. There were a lot of us there who happily would have helped you guys out. And like I said, I get a lot out of it as well. I'm energized when I meet with mentees. I get a renewed love for the industry. Every time I meet with any of you guys, it's so much fun to me. And I learned something new as well, like as far as being exposed to the issues that you guys are dealing with. May not necessarily be the same stuff that I was dealing with many years ago. So it's also interesting to hear what's important to you and what are the issues that you guys are facing.
Right.
Having a few years under your belt in the industry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess this leads us, to our questions, which apparently we have a lot.
Oh, good.
So yeah, it's going to be fun. So first question is, how do you know what you don't know?
Yeah.
And
you don't know what you don't know.
How do you work on that with your mentor?
I think it's about, like I said, you still have to have some pretty broad goals, but you don't have to have it all figured out how you get there. I had a thing where every time I learned a new animation or heard a new animation term, I would write it down. Because like I said, I came into the industry not knowing anything about animation. So people might as well have been speaking German to me because I had no idea what anybody was talking about. What are these acronyms that they keep throwing around? But I would write everything down. And then when I had a one-on-one session with, my manager, my supervisor, whoever, I would go through that list of like, okay, I have no idea what these things are. And I'm going to take the time and, get past my fear of not knowing and ask what these are. Once again, people love answering questions, just be appropriate, be respectful of people's time, but ask the questions. Just keep asking questions. Honestly, I think that's the best advice I can give as far as, not knowing what you don't know or knowing what you don't know. Just keep asking those questions.
I think
call it out.
Speaking from that question, because I've recently experienced that, is that I think when you feel lost in the direction of as being an artist, or in my case being a producer, I feel like I didn't know the first thing what it was to be a producer. And I think that's when I asked Jen and like other people, like, what does it even mean to be a producer? and then you gave me some like vocabulary where I was just like, what is that? What is scheduling? What's the context of scheduling? What is the context of like workflows or a pipeline?
Right.
And then
you can ask 10 different producers and you'll get 10 different answers too. So just once again, also don't go down a path of one person's opinion is the be all end all. Yeah. Ask many people, get many different opinions and figure out what's the best for you. There's so many people to learn from. I mean, I just thinking about the mentors that I've had, every director I've worked with has had a different approach, a different communication style, a different way of communicating. But yet I've learned something from each of them, and I would consider them mentors, even though it wasn't a formalized process. But keeping your ears and eyes open of finding those people that you think, that was smart. The way of doing that was really smart. I'm going to talk to them about that. Or I really like their approach to that, or their managerial style with regard to that, or their artistic approach, being able to come up with something on the fly super quickly. And I love the way they do that. Just make those mental notes and then approach them at the appropriate time and pick their brain a little bit.
Yeah, I think for that question, it's definitely it's a two-way street, right? Because you have to ask your mentor and they have the answers, but you yourself have to reflect on those answers or things that you are like, oh, I'm not familiar with that, and do research of is this something that I would like to keep going and figuring out? Right. Yeah, so it's definitely something internal. It's very internal as well. So then this leads us to our second question, which is, what are some tips to tell yourself if you're the mentee to gain confidence in yourself and your questions? This person feels that I feel myself feeling like a burden and an imposter when talking to mentors. I will give that person a hug.
So my whole thing is fake it till you make it. Everybody's faking it. Trust me. Just fake it till you make it. Put on that persona of, you know what, I'm going to go in there and ask. My first mentor was, her confidence was so amazing. And so I could look at that and go, oh yeah, she just asked that question. I'm going to ask that question. Put that in your brain of, I am the confident person. I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be open and share that information with others. But really, we're all faking it till we make it. It's the best advice, and it works. It truly works.
There's also no not knowing what you don't know, because that's the point of having a mentor. It's a point that we're all here. Like if you're asking yourself, like, I want a mentor, or do I need a mentor? That's you willing to learn. And that is something that I think everyone should be super proud of, because you're willing to be open and learn and grow. And that's nothing to feel ashamed or feel a burden about. That's a gift.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amen, sister.
So then our third question is, when relationships aren't cadenced as monthly meetings, but rather less frequent conversations, how do you keep in touch productively between the longer periods of time, 6 months even, between meetings?
Reach out through email. Like I said, I think lunch meetings are particularly easy to schedule, although now with this, it can get a little crazy if somebody's a parent. But I think just reach out to those folks, send a quick email. Hey, can we jump on Zoom for 30 minutes? I have a few things I'd love to run by you. I love it when mentees reach out and it's been 6 months later. I love to hear what they're doing and how they've grown, and, have they been promoted in their positions? I look forward to that, and I love that. But I think just getting that courage to send that email, and reach out and just say, hey, I have a few things I'd love to discuss with you. Do you have some time? Or an evening call too. Those can be done as well. But, I think lunchtime is always a great time to grab somebody and say, hey, I've got a few things I'd love to talk to you about.
Yeah, maybe
even
something like
minutes,
a Uber Eats boba, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We're not having those informal hallway conversations. We're having these very structured, formal, setups where we have to feel like we actually look decent on camera. We got good lighting and all of this. And it's that whole informality is gone, where you have a quick hallway conversation with somebody and you get your questions asked. So it takes even more, chutzpah to really get out there and go, okay, I'm going to do this today. I'm going to reach out to this person. I'm going to schedule some time, hopefully. It is your responsibility to keep coming back and finding a time that works for everybody. It's not my responsibility as a mentor to keep poking you about it and saying, hey, it's now our bi-monthly time, do you want to meet? That responsibility definitely has to come from the mentee. You have to be proactive enough to understand that you're the one who has the responsibility to reach out and to kind of set that initial agenda. But like I said, I love it when, a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, people are reaching out. It's great. It's great to hear how people have grown.
Yeah. And I think from like a mentor standpoint, like I think, or like a mentee reaching out to a mentor, like, I guess, like if I can understand it, like why I would sometimes feel guilty, like even to you, like feeling guilty, like reaching out, be like, hey, like, could you be my reference? Could you, but like I realize it's sort of like, I think you come from a place where you understand, just like I understand for you, that you're really busy too. And then I get really busy, and it's not like I was just like, okay, peace, bye. Like I, like thanks for all your help, or like, just taking it for granted. Like I think we just had a relationship where we're understanding of each other and being like, oh, hey, like we're here to help each other out, and like you do you, and please feel free to, when I generally say like, please feel free to reach out, it's like people actually mean that.
Yeah. Right. So, and I know it's hard. The guilt can be real, and it can be crippling. But fake like you don't have that guilt. Fake like you're not bothering somebody. It's their prerogative to say no. Let them be the one to say no. Don't say no on your own behalf. Really just
you can't assume, right, that they're like, oh, you're being a burden or you're being bothersome until they say so.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're all busy, frankly. Everybody's busy. Everybody's doing a million things. Everybody's having to do these meetings online and figure that all out. So just be one more thing. Don't worry about that. Just try and put the guilt aside, at least for 30 minutes, as you talk with somebody who's been in your situation and who really truly wants to help and wants to see you grow and succeed. So
yeah,
it's hard. I know it's hard though.
So beautiful, Jen.
Keep practicing.
Yeah. So for our fourth question, how do you know when you're ready for a mentor? How do you overcome the feeling that your work isn't good enough to seek individual guidance?
Oh my God, everybody could. Once again, get over that. When you come into a company, it can be overwhelming, of all the talent that you see around you. All of the processes that you don't know yet and you have no idea how to navigate. I think that's what's so great about having some structure in an HR department is to approach them. I mean, typically a new hire, I would say in my experience that I've found out, they usually will partner you with a mentor. But if they don't, speak up and say, hey, I'd really love to have somebody who can help me through this process that isn't necessarily my boss who is, writing my review. I would love to have somebody else. And HR departments are well versed in partnering people up. But yeah, it's we as women, we really do carry a lot of, well, what do they think about me saying this or that? And the more you can kind of let that go, I think, and the more you could talk to other women who have been through the same thing and can help you down your path, the more you kind of shed that fear of, I'm not good enough, I'm not talented enough, I don't know what I'm doing, they're going to call me out, I'm going to say a stupid question and everybody's going to laugh at me. I've made a lot of mistakes in my career and said a lot of stupid things looking back, but you just have to keep moving forward and learn from those experiences. And if there's people who can help you figure it out, lean on those people. Don't ever feel like you're not worthy of help. I mean, you got to get over that. And the people who succeed the most are the ones who seek out that help. They are the ones who are getting different opinions and really kind of absorbing all the information and figuring out what's right for them. And like I said, advocating on their own behalf. And then you see those people succeed and you see them getting promoted over you. And that happens enough times, it lights a fire under you to say, you know what, I can do that. I can do what they're doing. If I, even though deep inside, if I don't feel like I have that, I am going to fake like I do and be honest about what I don't know and go to somebody within the company and say, hey, can you, help me strategize on how I can take my career to the next level? But I think even just walking in the door, fresh out of school, is also a really important time to have a mentor. When you're in school, finding those teachers that you really connect with, and getting that mentorship, as you're a student. I think you can never not have a mentor.
Yeah, I feel like if you're watching this video right now,
exactly,
and to learn, you're ready for a mentor. I think
right.
Yeah, no matter what stage you're at, even if you're just starting to draw, you can still have a mentor where you can be talking to a peer who's been drawing maybe a few years longer than you. Like, how did you get started? Or if you just graduated, then you talk to professionals. If you're rising the ranks in the company, you could talk to someone who's done that and maybe who went all the way to the top, or actually left the company, started doing their own thing. Everyone can use a mentor. It just depends on where you're at, what you need, and what you would like to learn.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to have a back and forth with somebody. You can only watch so many videos. I mean, we're getting questions right now, but eventually it'll just be a video. there's only so much research you can do on your own. Actually, talking to a living, breathing person where you can ask questions, it will get you so much further. Particularly for women, I think, it's really important to note that more than 60% of animation students are women in school. By the time they get into the workforce, 20% of that number, 20% of women hold the leadership positions in the animation industry. So that number drops significantly. And so it is really important as women that we help each other rise up the ranks and get those opportunities. I mean, when the opportunity to staff a qualified, talented female animator, I'm going to jump on that. Of course, that will be the first person I call. So it's good to really be aware of, how we steer each other in certain directions. I think in animation, it's common for women to end up on the organizational side, either because they don't get those creative opportunities, or they think, well, I am good at that, and there is an opening in this, even though I really want to be a lighter. There's a coordinator position here. Just be really aware of why you're taking that step. And that's where a mentor can really help you, that if you do want to be in these leadership positions, if you do want the creative opportunities where you are the decision maker in the room, mentors can really help you kind of find a path to that, to where you are, having a seat at the table and making those creative decisions.
Yeah, for sure. I think we need more women and gender minorities to take on those seats, and I think even more importantly, just have that support, that they know that they're not alone, or like, hey, you're not crazy. You just have to keep on fighting for what you want.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So then our fifth question: how do you know if you're ready to be a mentor? Ooh, switching it up. Huh? This is exciting. When did you first know you were ready to be a mentor?
Oh God, I don't know if an alarm.
When people start asking you questions,
yes. And they want to hear your opinion,
your
and
experience.
I think you have something valuable to share. As we were talking about the peer-to-peer thing, the kind of mentorship opportunity, if you do find that people are coming to you, if you do feel like, oh, that particular skill people don't know, and maybe it's worth it for me to share or teach a class in that. I think, like I said, I don't think you just know. Mentors don't know it all. They don't have all the answers also. It's not like you graduate mentor school and you're at a certain point where you can share all that knowledge. I think that, give it a shot, really. I mean, it's like I said, it's a lot of fun. And as long as you feel like you have enough experience to really share that with somebody else, do it. You don't have to be in the industry 20 years and become a mentor.
Yeah.
You really don't.
Yeah. I think if you have experience, then you should just go for it. And
or you have a certain specialty.
Yeah, have a certain specialty, or like, even you can, if you're at a point where like maybe you won't know the answer, but you're like, hey, I have a friend who just might, then you just send them in that direction, or if you're resourceful.
So, Amy,
that's what I
then I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you feel that you could be a mentor?
I think I'm a little nervous, but I think so. Yeah, I haven't been formally a mentor, but if anyone wants to learn about how to make an indie film, hit me up.
Reach out on LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn. It's there.
Yeah, once again, so you've got experience in a particular area. Yeah, it may not be this whole thing. You could come up with a list of things that you don't know, but you have a specialty now. You've done something that honestly very few people have done, and that's produce a short film independently. You did a Kickstarter campaign. You're pretty much an expert in that particular area. And I'm sure you found, hey, in this Kickstarter, there's a few things I do differently now, learning from and going through that experience. That's experience that you can share with other people.
Right.
Hey, if I was doing a Kickstarter campaign, you'd be the first person I'd call, So definitely. Once you get a little area that you have exposure to and experience in, then share it with others.
Yeah, I think for sure. And I think even like even if you were a student at this point, right, and you've had
Yeah.
a few interviews underneath your belt, I think that in a way can qualify you because you have experience of going through interviews. That
Right.
qualifies you in a way where like if someone were to ask you like, hey, how do I go through interviews? Like, what was that like for you? You totally have a seat at the table to say your experience and share that knowledge with people to lift them up. So
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
is key. And if you're willing to help people, if you want to help
Right.
people, and I think that makes a great
Mhm.
mentor.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned interviewing. That's a great opportunity with a mentor. Is say you want to change jobs or you're fresh out of school and you want to practice how to be effective in an interview and how to communicate clearly and share your experience. Um, with a mentor, that's a perfect opportunity. It's a
For sure.
perfect opportunity to
Oh
sit
yeah.
down because they've been through a million interviews and they know exactly what to talk about and what to avoid in an interview. That's a perfect kind of role playing situation to work out with a mentor.
Yeah. Oh, mock interviews are great. Definitely take advantage of doing mock interviews with your mentors.
Yes, yes,
For
yes,
sure.
yes. Get over that fear of feeling foolish. Get over that fear of, oh my God, I don't really want to do this. I'm better just, in the moment. Like just do it. The practice really helps.
Oh yeah.
It makes you feel more comfortable. So when you do get into that really stressful, interview situation, you can kind of fall back a little bit on the experience that you had with your mentor. Really kind of gets those nerves under control a little
Yeah.
bit more. At least for me, it does.
Yeah. I mean, I did it with you. It was great.
Yes.
So, so leading to our next question. So our
Sure.
sixth question:
Mhm.
Are there other mentor groups you could tell us about? And were you part of any mentorship groups before WIA?
I think I was part of kind of informally mentoring through work, and particularly at Dreamworks. Worked with a lot of different folks that were rising up the ranks. Like I said, on the organizational side, a lot of coordinators, supervisors, but they didn't really have a formalized program. I think with Women in Animation, that was the first real formalized program that I was exposed to, and really, I like both, honestly. Um, but as far as others, I'm sure every kind of group probably has a formalized program, whether that's, Visual Effects Society, but just, hop online and do some research. I'm sure there's a lot more groups out there that I'm not even aware of that you can look into.
Sure. Yeah. Um, eighth question. Oh, sorry, seventh question. My
I
bad.
love how you've got
I
these
can't.
sound
I
numbers.
can't. I can't. I can't count. Okay.
No,
What
we're
what
both
ha-
typing.
what happens if you and your mentor or mentee do not click right away?
Um, like I said, I think it's okay to call it.
Yeah.
It's a relationship that you really have to feel somewhat comfortable in because that's how you will get the most out of it is the comfort to be able to ask some probably very sensitive questions. And like I said, it's okay to say, you know what, this probably isn't working. Um, Thanks so much for your time. But, and you obviously, if you had set up a regular schedule before you felt like you had that rapport, then you need to back out of it, honestly. Um, but if you set the stage at the beginning of, hey, we're just kind of feeling each other out, this kind of informational interview type setting, I think then it's easy to say, oh, thank you so much for your time, really appreciate it, and then not make a forward commitment. But really, life's too short to feel like, oh my God, I'm not getting what I want out of this. And yet now I feel an obligation to schedule time with this person. Um, just cut your losses, honestly. I think the mentor would value that. Their time is, critical and they would rather be helping somebody where there is that kind of relationship. So I think it's okay to back out of that.
Yeah. It's true. So yeah. Okay. Eighth question. Any tips for navigating the difficult conversation with a mentor of understanding pay structures in the industry?
Yeah, that's a good one. The whole concept of money. nobody ever wants to talk about. Companies, because if you have two people talking about money, one person's going to walk away feeling bad. Definitely, hands down. That's just how it goes. One person's going to walk away feeling like, oh, wait a minute, I haven't been treated fairly. That's why I think it's important to have a mentor where you can talk about that. But as far as industry ranges, you can get a good sense from your mentor of what else is out there with this, particular type of responsibility. What's the pay range I can expect? But I do think we do need to get a little more comfortable talking about money and speaking up about raises. So once again, that's another thing you can work out with your mentor as far as, okay, I feel like I deserve a raise. How do I ask for one? Well, let's talk about what you've accomplished in the last year and let's write it out, because then we can work on, prepping to have that conversation with a boss to say, okay, I've accomplished, these 5 things over this year, and I really feel like it's worth a pay raise. But it's so important to be able to kind of talk that out with somebody, because we've put this stigma on, once again, advocating on your own behalf. Because trust me, there's a lot of guys out there who have no problem like getting hired and then 2 weeks later asking for more money. We have to be able to kind of be a little bit more like them and advocate to say, you know what, I've brought these things to the table and I'm worth it. I'm worth this increase in salary. And, once again, that, like I said, that's a great place to feel comfortable in working out that conversation with your mentor.
Yeah.
But
that would be one good reason to have a mentor outside of your company. Yeah, for sure.
But that's side too, because, like I said, they can give you strategies and say, well, typically you should have X number of things under your belt before or you have to really do the job before you're considered for it. And they have more insight into the specific strategies, those specific kind of nuances within the company that really can help you get forward faster. So, in and out of the company, I think it's important to, explore what other options you have with a mentor.
For sure.
It's just different approaches.
Yeah. So for our last 2 questions, so our 9th question is, how would you help your mentee measure their success?
Ooh, wow. Gosh, are you feeling like you're getting the answers you need? Are you feeling like you're learning, answers to questions that you didn't know before? Are you feeling energized by the conversation, or are you feeling drained every time you come out of that relationship? I don't necessarily think it needs to be particular boxes that you're checking off for it to feel, worthy and successful. But I think you do have to feel like, that was time well spent. And wow, I really enjoy spending time with this person. And I feel like I'm getting some new insights that I didn't have before. Is it feeling good when you come out of that conversation? Did you feel better coming out of it than you did going into it? I think is a good indication. But that's a really good question.
Yeah. Asking your mentee, like, how did they feel? It's good.
Yeah.
So for our last question, what are some examples of the most valuable things you learned from your mentors, especially early in your career?
There's so much, but I think the valuable things are the kind of interpersonal communications. For me, it was a lot of observing how people respond in different situations. And also like the simplest things, like taking a seat at the table. Like, I think as a coordinator, I would have a tendency of, oh, well, the artist should sit at the table. Oh, the leadership should sit at the table. And I'm going to be back here. Just physically being present and saying, you know what, I'm taking a seat at the table. And if somebody tells me to move, that's fine. But I'm going to be visible and take this seat and be represented. God, I've learned so many valuable things. One of the funniest things, like as coordinators, we used to run around a lot, and you're going from one meeting to the next, and somebody said, "Don't run; it makes you look desperate." Which I thought, oh, that's a good little tidbit that I'll remember for the rest of my life. But just so many things. But it would come down to really, how did a person navigate a particular sticky situation? How did they navigate when an artist wasn't quite understanding a director's intention? So those kind of interpersonal relationships where I could really observe behavior was most valuable to me. And then, of course, talk about it with my mentor afterwards. Like, oh, I saw that you did X, Y, and Z. I'm wondering why you did that. Or, did you learn the hard way, or did you have experiences where that didn't work out? But I think learning by example, I think, was pretty key for me at Dreamworks, I think, at least. Yeah.
Well, that is the end of our
already?
end of our Q&A. Yeah, already. It's been an hour. So thank you all for joining us today for our third episode on mentorship and guidance. Thank you, Jen, for being here.
Thank you.
Sharing wisdom, as always. So please subscribe to this channel and our social media for future videos, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Jen.
guys. Appreciate it.
Everyone.